The world is getting darker and life is getting harder. And oftentimes, harder, heavier music helps us process the difficult things in this world. And heavier and harder music done with a heart towards the Lord pierces through the darkness. The reason why the world right now is getting darker and times are getting harder is because we're in the middle of a spiritual war. That's right, Poe. Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, things that we can't see that are in the heavenly realms. Well, tonight we're going to talk about some of this spiritual warfare and experience some hard and heavy music that's going to help us through these hard and difficult times. The band that we have that's going to be joining us in just a few moments is known as Weapons of God. Oh my goodness, look at this screen. We've got a ton of people. It looks like Hollywood Squares or the Brady Bunch right now. This is Weapons of God. Hey, before we go ahead and get started and dive into the tunage, can each of you introduce yourselves? And we'll start over here with Steve.
Steve McGowan.
Jason Harmon, Chief Drumming Officer.
I'm Leon Black, and Screams and Strings.
Gerard Bass, Subsonic Devastation.
I love it. I love the titles. So let's start with the band's name. It's very attention-grabbing and thought-provoking. When you say Weapons of God, what are we referring to?
Well, the name of Weapons of God started where I was in the process of writing a song called Weapons of God, and at the time, in the early days, the band had a different name at the time. So I started writing a song referring to Ephesians 6:10-20, talking about the armor of God. Yeah. So I thought, man, this would be a really good song. I mean, it sounds like a lot heavier, Weapons of God, So changed the name, and it just started from there. But Weapons of God could be a reference to, our instruments or the weapons, our vocals, the lyrics, the music,
or
the Bible, ourselves. Yeah. Even you're a weapon of God. We're out. You go out there and you get the word out, get the message. The message of God.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we came on the stream tonight, I was taking a look at Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12. So I was in the right wheelhouse of the name of the band. And one of the things that I find interesting is that word wrestle, that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places. That word wrestle, pole. Now, that's not a reference to Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan type wrestling. Woo! It's more of the, it's more the Greco-Roman style. But what you were just saying, Steve, about your weapons and your voices, another definition of the word pole, which means to wrestle, means to vibrate. It's a vibration or a frequency vibration. So when you guys are playing your instruments for the Lord, and when you're singing unto the Lord and singing for the Lord, you guys are actually breaking through the darkness. It's a spiritual weapon. And this is one of the things that we've said a lot on this show. If you take a look at the word for instrument in Hebrew, it's kili, which actually means artillery. And that's why I love heavy, hard music for Jesus, because it just pierces through the darkness. And I really see that with what you guys are doing as a band, and really appreciate that you're out there and you're fighting the good fight and breaking through the darkness. Just this summer, you released a track off of your third album entitled Tribulation, or should I say Tribulation. I noticed that the tri was capitalized for number 3. It's entitled The Death of Me. What is the message of this song?
Death of Me is pretty much a song about dying to yourself, dying to the old you, giving up the past, and surrendering your life for Christ. and starting a fresh new life through him.
Let's go ahead and take that song for a spin. This is Death of Me by Weapons of God. chunky and crunchy. That's the way I like my music, and that is just Chunkified and crunchified. That's
Cool.
new term. You heard it here first on Raven's Heart. Chunkified and crunchified. You guys can use that now, like in Heaven's Metal magazine when they interview and they ask you, hey, how would you describe your music? Oh, it's chunkified and crunchified. And you know what? They don't even copyright it.
That was part of the goal, to generate new adjectives as people listen to it. So
Right.
good.
Hey, I passed the test. I passed the test tonight. You know, the death of me. Hard rock, heavy metal historically has had a lot of imagery of death, dying, rotting carcasses, things like that. And it's kind of scared people a little bit, but it's just a reality of this life is that we are all going to die. But what you're doing is you're taking these concepts that are very familiar to the genre and you're going beyond, well, you just die. You know, we're just sad about dying. You're talking about we must die to ourselves to really live life, not just on this earth, but to live eternally. And you're giving the answer to the question. And that's what I like about what you're doing. You're doing it in the same genre format. It's not like you're trying to sound like somebody. I mean, you guys are your own sound. I can hear the different influences in there, but you are weapons of God. And your music is just, that's what people need to hear. They need to hear the chunkified and crunchified sound of weapons of God.
Sounds like a new album name.
Yeah.
Chunkified.
Chunkified.
Chunkified. Is that like a Disturbed song? We can make it like Chunkified.
Sounds like a menu option, the way to order your chicken at Country Fried Chicken. I want my chicken chunkified, please.
Poultry chunkified.
Before we came on tonight, I was outside. It's pretty hot outside, and I was doing some home renovations outside in the heat, and was kind of feeling a little bit woozy. But I'm coming back to life now. This is a lot of fun. You know, collectively, you guys are weapons of God. You're the band, but each of you is your own unique person. And as I was doing some diving, boy, is each of you really unique. You're very different, and I want to dive into those differences a little bit and go around with everybody that's here. So I have prepared for each of you a unique question, and I got this is Mad Libs. I've got a copy of Mad Libs right here in my hand. And this is Mad Lib's interview with a rock star. So if you're wondering how I come up with these questions, I just throw in adjectives and things like that. Adverbs. I don't think adverb is on there. I think that's a little bit too academic for Mad Libs, but that's where we got it from. So Steve, you are number one, the first one. Here comes your question. Batter up, because here it comes. So your influences include Randy Rhoads, Zakk Wylde, and Eddie Van Halen, all great musicians. This is what many believers would refer to as secular musicians. So in your opinion, and this is your opinion and where God's led you, why is it okay for a Christian artist to be influenced by the style of a secular artist?
I mean, I don't know if it's okay or not. You have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I wasn't raised around a lot of Christian rock music. Only Christian rock music I knew was Petra and Stryper. And Stryper was a lot heavier than Petra so that was my first introduction to them in '86. But when you're not, when you're listening to bands like Van Halen and Kiss and Ozzy, and that's all you have, and you're not around the right people to help you introduce other Christian bands like White Cross, Tourniquet, I don't know, quite a few, Bearing Cross Soldier, Holy Soldier, those bands. I mean, when it's not introduced to you in your life, then easily those influences are there. And what better way to take those influences and turn it around for the good?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of similarity. I mean, you listen to Sacred Warrior, you hear Queensryche.
Yeah.
You know, you listen to White Cross, you hear early White Cross, you hear Rats. You know, so it had to start somewhere, and I think I'm pretty sure it started with those guys too, like that. It had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You know, Steve, this is the way that I look at it is music, just the music, the musical notes, the style of the music. Music is music. It's where you take it.
Right on.
And if you're going to learn, if you're going to be influenced by the best. I mean, there is no question, you know, whether secular or Christian. Randy Rhoads, Zakk Wylde, and Eddie Van Halen, they were the best in their class. And why not learn from the people that are the best in their class, and then take it and use it to glorify Jesus, as you were just saying. You know, if you're going to sit in a box and not be influenced by anything, I don't think your music is going to be very good. And I think that's been a problem. Yeah, that was definitely a problem with Christian music for a while, because it's like, oh, you know, we're going to avoid the worldly influences and just kind of, you know, do our own thing. And it wasn't that great. You know, when I first got saved, and that was in the 90s, and I started listening to Christian music, I was like, well, I guess this is what I have to listen to. And I really didn't like it that much. I really wanted to listen to Van Halen more, but I didn't, because I knew I'd be in trouble at the church I was going to. So, but look at the bad boy I am now. So, okay, question number 2, and this one is going out to Leon.
All
Here we
right.
go.
Hit me with it.
So, shortly after you started to learn how to play guitar, you were drawn to the genre of heavy metal. Why were you drawn to metal rather than another genre? Let's say, like maybe yacht rock. What was it that drew you? What was it that drew you to metal?
I mean, kind of the same thing. I mean, it was. I actually did grow up sort of listening to. I mean, when I was first started playing, I think, you know, I'd have to credit my brother probably for musical influences, in the sense that he listened to things like Judas Priest, Thin Lizzy, you know, some Van Halen, of course, Iron Maiden, those kinds of things. And the music that, when I was that little, you know, I say little, I mean like probably 6, 7 years old, about all my parents would let me listen to was, you know, like Barry Manilow,
and yacht rock.
Some
There you
some
go.
bluegrass and some gospel. So my parents both got saved when I was very young. So I pretty much was brought up in church. Once I realized that there was this whole, you know, selection of Christian, you know, rock and metal bands, I immediately started listening to more metal. But metal in itself, to me, it's the raw emotion, the aggression of it, that just made me want to kind of pour myself into that style of music. I listen to a wide variety of styles and music from all types of genres or whatever. But you know, my personal preference is the heavier stuff, the metal, and a lot of times, you know, extreme metal. I got really early on got into some pretty obscure kind of hardcore stuff that just the nastier, the aggression, the more aggressive, the better for me. And it just drew me to that, the sounds of the guitars in particular. But yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff I like, and it's the kind of stuff I think that speaks to me. And I think in a world like we're in, you kind of have to grab attention in a sense.
Yeah,
so it's sort of that lift you up and kind of belt you across the face with with something nice and heavy, and then give you the love of Christ.
Yeah, smack you upside with the electric guitar and the truth of the gospel is what you're doing.
Yeah, those are the weapons. Back to that other.
There you go. Your weapons. The axe is your weapon. So Barry Manilow, we'll talk more about that later, maybe.
So I can break it down for you. Basically, my older sister had a Barry Manilow greatest hits. I took a very early interest in music, and that was just one of the few things I could get my hands on and play.
Okay.
That my parents would not rip out of the player and throw it in the garbage. So,
I mean, Barry Manilow, very gifted musician.
absolutely.
Absolutely gifted.
Yep.
And that's one of the things is, like you, Leon, my go-to is metal, but I'll listen to all sorts of different genres. I'll even listen to Broadway musical music. I've got some albums on my rack that are Broadway musical tracks, and I absolutely love it because of the artistry in it, and it speaks to me at different times. And it's really funny that you mentioned Judas Priest, because every time I hear their song "Breaking the Law," it takes me to James 2:10, where, Paul wrote, if you break one of the commandments, you've broken them all. And I keep thinking of, very biblical, breaking the law. And I always think of James 2:10 when I hear that song. I'm probably weird. Okay.
No.
I get it.
No, I don't
all.
think you are. And I think the more you read, at least for myself, the more I read the Bible, and by that I mean cover to cover, so to speak. I don't know how many times over the past 4 or 5 years, I just keep reading through it. I don't always seek out particular things. I just pick up where I left off and keep reading it. And there's so many common, sayings, or what you might even call cliche type sayings in the secular world that have their origins in the Bible. And a lot of people don't know that. And sometimes when you tell people that, like where that came from, a lot of people used to, for example, would credit Shakespeare for saying, that there's nothing new under the sun, but that's actually right out of Solomon. So it's the one that actually said that. And there's so many different little quotes and things like that you hear that people say, oh, I've heard this from this or whatever. And it's like, that's in the Bible. And they're like, what do you mean that's in the Bible? I'm like, yeah, that's where it came from. That's where it originally came from. So
yeah, dude, you're quoting scripture.
Yeah.
And when Paul was writing the epistles, Paul was very educated. He did not live in a box and just eat Chick-fil-A every day.
Right.
He was actually very well educated. Yeah, I do too. But there's that mentality of, well, if it's not Christian, I'm not going to do it, or if it's not Christian, I'm not going to touch it. Paul's references, he references Plato in his epistles. He references sports in his epistles. He references different pieces of literature. And one of the things that I find the most fascinating, and I know that this is going to stir some people up a little bit, when he was on Mars Hill and he started quoting the song of Zeus, in him we live and move and have our being. That was actually a song to Zeus, who is a demonic being. And he took that and completely flipped it around. It's like, hey, at the altar of the unknown God, this is the God you need to worship. So very educated, and he was aware of the world around him. So did not live in a box and just eat Chick-fil-A every day. I don't know if I'm going to get censored first thing, Chick-fil-A or what. I don't know. So with that, we are going to move on to our next contestant on Hollywood Squares tonight. And that's Ed. And in your bio on the band's website, you state that it's very important to you to use your talents for Christ. Why is it important to you to use your talents for Jesus?
Yes, sir, because simply put, we all have gifts and talents and blessings from God. And lo and behold, back in the BC days, you might be using some of these talents, but you're using them for the wrong reason. It's like, and when I started playing in Christian bands, it just had a whole different feel to it. It's like, now I'm doing the right thing. I feel like I'm not squandering my talent. Because obviously, if you're doing it for the right reasons, you're definitely gonna have a different spirit on you. So, and you just feel more grounded. It's like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing, and I'm pleasing God because He's the one that gave me this gift. He's the one that gave me this blessing to begin with, and it's really important for me. Not just as a responsibility, a duty, call it what you will, or an obligation, one I take freely, because for one thing, you're doing what you love to do with the talent that he gave you, and you're doing it for the right reason.
So it's not your religious obligation and duty to go rock. It's something that you freely want to do. It's not something that you're doing out of.
I mean, you're doing it because, well, I mean, for one thing, you enjoy doing it, and I just thank the Lord for the talent that He's given me. I mean, because everybody, like I was just saying, everybody has different gifts and different abilities. I mean, not just musically, but otherwise. I mean, I'm gonna give Rochelle a big tip of the hat here, because her gifts are, different than mine or different than yours or whatever. But I'll tell you what, girl uses them well. I mean, she is just extremely gifted. She's got so many talents and abilities, and it's a blessing to have her. It really does.
From what I can tell, is she's the one that keeps you all in line. Is that the case, Rochelle?
She tries.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't try.
But I just wanted to give her a quick shout out, because we're talking about different gifts and everything, and without her particular set of gifts, I mean, it wouldn't be conducive to what we're doing. And she just really helps to round out our gifts, with guitar, vocal, drums, bass, whatever. And it's truly a partnership.
Yeah.
And it's just a blessing to be part of it.
And Ed, as you're using your talents to glorify Jesus here on earth, you're laying up treasures in heaven. I just felt that so strongly as you're sharing with me your heart, and that's true for each of you that's here. And before we get to Jason, who I find to be the most unique of the bunch, we got a question for you, Rochelle. Can you share with us what you do in this odyssey known as Weapons of God?
Business manager / road manager, photographer,
psychiatrist,
Cat herder.
when we're in the studio, I listen for things, help with that, a little bit of everything. I do merchandising stuff. It's a little bit of everything. I've been around since the inception of this, and what started it all was he was working on a demo of the first CD, and he needed an extra set of ears. So that's and that was 2013.
Yeah.
So that's what started it for me.
Wow. And Rochelle, just because you're not seen on stage or necessarily in the music videos, what you do is so important, because as it was said, it's a group. You are a team, and it's a team effort. And a lot of people, they don't realize the things that go on behind the scenes to make a team work. And a lot of times it's the people behind the scenes that have a tough job, business management and things like that. That's not my gifting, really. But I for somebody that has that, that's really awesome. That's really awesome. So, Jason, now it's your turn. You are in the chute. And as I said, you are the most interesting individual as I was taking a look at the band, because you listen more to audio books than you do. And there's Poe My Raven, books on tape. I wonder if you have any books on tape. You'll have to tell us. You listen more audio books than you do music. And that completely destroys people's images of what a rock musician is. They think you're just rocking out all day. Why do you listen to more audiobooks than music, and how does this help you as a musician?
Well, I guess for starters, I'm really truly humbled and privileged to shatter most people's image of a typical rock musician, because honestly, that's never something that I set out to be. I didn't even set out to be a musician, but only by the grace of God, here I am. I think if I was there's a lot of what people would consider typical rock musicians or rock bands or rock acts, whatever. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, you look at a band like AC/DC, who has kind of followed a template for their entire career, has been, incredibly successful at what they do. Listening, just devouring so many books over the course of my short period here on Earth hasn't really helped me necessarily on a musical front, but it definitely provides a lot of fodder for the lyrical content. The music is kind of going back to what Leon said, just kind of what you really feel inside, and allowing that to come out in a series of chords, notes, or melodies, or whatever. That's one thing. But then being able to provide the lyrics on top of that is, those are two completely different compartments for me. So I can, and I've done a lot of traveling. I've logged a ton of road miles. So it's easier for me to get through a trip if I'm listening to something that I've never listened to before and it's engaging me mentally, instead of just, rolling along with a tune or whatever, especially something that I've heard before. But I can draw, you kind of mentioned about the whole living in a box thing.
Yeah.
I can draw inspiration from Christopher Hitchens or Richard Dawkins just as easily as I can from the Bible or anything else.
Mhm.
Because, I come at things from a Christian worldview by default. And I feel like if I'm tuning out any dissenting opinions or anything that might challenge my belief system, I want to be able to make sure that I hear those, can address them when I'm speaking with somebody that holds those opinions, but also to reinforce and challenge my own beliefs, because, especially when it comes to your eternal disposition, you don't want to be wrong. You could be wrong about so many things throughout your life, but if that's the one thing you're wrong about, everything else really doesn't matter. I know folks like, in some of my influences are like Tool, Rush, Iron Maiden's in there too, but there's obviously a lot of influence from literature in a lot of the lyrical content that they have. So I just got back a couple weeks ago from taking a road trip to Alaska and all up around northern Canada. And one of the songs, I actually came home with 3 songs. One of them I've already completed a demo for and shared with everybody, but I've got 2 more. One of them is called Ripple on the Sea. And what that came about from was a book on quantum mechanics. And it was talking about, the quantum foam and virtual particles coming in and out of existence. And I thought, oh, you could kind of change that around to make it a little more digestible, because everybody, understands waves, ripples, water, ocean, those kind of things. So once again, just kind of took that, put it into a Christian worldview, and hopefully I'll be able to share it with everybody here. And also just kind of circling back around to Rochelle, one of the nice things is when you've developed something, or you're in the process of developing something, she is very valuable in that she comes at things completely cold, and she's listening to it with a different set of ears. And it's nice to be able to have that perspective, because it's relatively easy to develop tunnel vision whenever you're either working on a song together or, just individually, to hopefully help you get the best out of what that song should be, as opposed to if you just, kind of had your own view, your own ears, your own eyes. So it really helps, especially being in the studio with everybody that for this last album, really, really helped, I think, squeeze the best out of what we could get for the finished product. So kudos.
Yeah, I think there's a lesson in all of this for all believers, is we need to become more aware of the world that's around us. We need to become aware of the things that are going on around us, not just our own world, because we're afraid. And I think that's one of the things that the church has done wrong, Jesus said, "Go ye into all the world." He didn't say, "Lock yourselves in your church and just stay there among yourselves," but "Go ye into the world and make disciples." Well, to understand the world, we have to be in tune with what's going on and the heart cry of the world. And this whole thing. I listened to something last night that absolutely fascinated me. And it's the simulation theory that we're living in a simulation. I was like, okay, this is interesting. And the host asked the professor about, well, how does this intersect with faith? And he's like, well, it does completely. And he shared it. And I was like, yeah, that's what Paul was talking about when everything's a shadow and a pattern of heavenly things. It's spoken of in Scripture. And there's two different theories of simulation theory. And one of them is very Calvinistic and the other one isn't. I was like, well, that's Calvinism that they're talking about there. And, you can see it. Be grounded in the word first and then observe the world around you and use Scripture and the word of God as your filter. And it's going to open up your eyes to a whole lot of different things. So we really need to be aware of what's going on in the world so that we can reach the world.
Right. Yeah. And that even kind of goes back even way before Paul in Plato's cave, when they're seeing the shadows there. But I think more importantly for today, and this is just, my personal opinion, if you're engaged with somebody in a conversation, a civil conversation, and like these, Facebook wars or social media wars that just spiral out of control, being able to meet people where they are instead of appealing to an authority that they may not recognize as an authority, such as the Bible. If you can engage them directly with the things that they believe, their core beliefs, and start to just engage with them there and maybe even chip away at them, you're going to tend to get a lot more interest in what you have to say, as opposed to the street corner preacher model where you're just trying to beat people over the head with a Jesus bat.
Yeah.
So
that really doesn't work very well anymore.
No,
it doesn't. It actually does quite the opposite. Wow. Profound. I knew you were the most unique of the bunch. When we were.
He's unique, all right.
He's unique. I'm sure
I don't know if I'd use the word unique, but he's definitely something.
Hey.
just like everybody else.
Well, he makes crunchified and chunkified music. I mean, so unique. It's all good. It's all good. Hey, before we close out, the reason why you came by my way, and I'm glad that you did, is you are now signed and part of the Resurrection Records family. What are you guys looking forward to the most of being a part of Resurrection Records? And can you share any experience that you've had with them yet?
For me, I would say I'm looking forward to hopefully playing with some more of these bands that are on the label. So just more exposure, more, so far, we've met a ton of people and a ton of bands out there over the last 5 or 6 years, and all good people, and it's just nice to sometimes spend some time with a little bit of like-minded folk and, learn from them, their experience and that kind of thing too. But really looking forward to hopefully doing some gigs with some of these other bands. Yeah. So
I'm really the only one that's had a lot to do with Resurrection right now. They played with Aaron in 21, I think it was.
Rockin' the River.
Yeah, out in Arkansas. But I've dealt with Jen Lamaris, and she is wonderful. And what she does for the bands and her personality and her heart for what she's doing for everybody, it's amazing. And it's totally a God thing how everything happened, because from the very beginning of this in 2016 to Rocks in 2018 to Darth Plummer, Born.
I know him very well.
And from that to Aaron with Resurrection, it's just the way everything's happened. It's been totally a God thing. And I know that we're going to get to play with the bands. The other ones we've been trying to get with Fear Not now for several years because we know them personally. But it's been so started in May 1st. So
Aaron
since
reached
May,
out to you.
yeah,
didn't
he reached out to me in November, and he was working behind the scenes with Bill at Rocks, and I didn't know it, and I kept holding off, and then they worked out a deal, so we were able to keep both, and it's been great.
I really believe that Resurrection Records is the way of the future with Christian music. It's more of brothers and sisters coming together to glorify Jesus as a united front than it is just a label to churn out stuff for the industry. And that's one of the things that I've really appreciated about Aaron. And hey, in the link down below in the description, we've added a link to Aaron Michaels and Resurrection Records for any other artists that would be interested in joining that collective force, is what I would call it. But hey, unfortunately, we are out of time and gotta go. Guys, if you could just hang on with me while I close out. Until next week, we'll be back on the same night, Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And until next week, peace out and rock on.
Lithoscry.com